So we have some fantastic news coming from the Canadian government. The government just announced that they will be allowing first-time homebuyers 30 years amortization mortgages. And get this, for newly built homes. Now in the past, you could get 30-year amortization if you put down 20% down payment. Now, all first-time homebuyers can get up to 30-year amortization. That means that if you only have 5% down and you need to get the mortgage insurance, you can still get the 30-year amortization. This is fantastic news for a couple reasons. First of all, it helps the developers because they get to charge more per unit, which means they get to profit more, you know, at the cost of middle-class families. But dude, you're in Canada, who cares about the lower or middle class? I mean, you should know, it's all about the elites, nobody cares about us. And you know, having a 30-year amortization helps people afford higher price tags on their homes. I mean, it's at the cost of being in debt your entire life and paying more interest to the banks. In other news, the government will raise the amount that first-time home buyers can withdraw from their RRSP from $35,000 to $60,000. And for people that withdrew money between January 2022 to December 2025, they get 5 years to repay their RRSP instead of just 2 years. Now, all of these government incentives are designed to give first-time home buyers a better chance to get into the market. Because the idea is, with the help of RRSP and a longer amortization period, it makes housing more affordable for the first-time home buyer. So we have some fantastic news coming from the Canadian government.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Is it really? Is giving Canadians an opportunity to get a longer amortization period actually a good idea? Let's run the numbers. This is the thing about mortgages, loans, or really anything about personal finance. Unfortunately, most Canadians are really lost on this topic. And you know what? It's not their fault. Our educational system failed us. Cause they don't teach you this in school. You know what? Most likely because the school teachers don't even know this. So when young people join the workforce and start looking for investments and mortgages, they're so behind on financial knowledge that they just listen to whatever the financial advisors sell them. Look, I've done videos on this before. Financial advisors, they're salespeople. They're not the best resource for financial knowledge. So let me run through the numbers between the 25-year amortization period and 30-year amortization period and see the differences. Now, to understand mortgages, you have to know how they work. See, schools don't teach you this because the teachers probably don't even know. Mortgages are front-loaded. What that means is for the first couple years of your mortgage, you're paying way more interest than you are your principal, which is very important when we look into the math. First, let's take a look at 25-year amortization. Assume you're taking out a $475,000 mortgage. Yeah, I know, in BC and Ontario, you can't even get a shoebox for that price. We're gonna do bi-weekly payments, cause most people's paychecks comes every 2 weeks. So if your amortization is 25 years, your bi-weekly payment is $1,274. Now, we are assuming 5% interest rates, which is about a 5-year fixed term right now in Canada. So after 5 years, you've paid in total $165,000, 54 went to principal, 111 went to interest. Cause in Canada, the longest term you can get is 5 years. Now, let's take a look at 30-year amortization. For 30 years, you're expecting to pay less for your first 5 years. And you do pay less. You're paying $1,170 bi-weekly and $152,000 overall. Now, when I mean overall, I mean for the first 5-year term. So you're saving almost $13,000 in payments for the first 5 years, which sounds good, but get this, you're actually paying more in interest. Almost $113,000 in interest compared to only $111,000 for 25-year amortization. And for principal payments, you've only paid off $39,000 compared to $54,000 for 25-year amortization. So after 5 years, you're owning 28% less home than you would if you would have gotten a 25-year amortization. Just look at the total interest rate on that $475,000 loan. $437,000 for a 30-year amortization compared to just $353,000 for 25 years. So almost $86,000 more in interest. Now, what I want to go back to are the principal payments. You see how after 5 years for 30-year amortization, you've only paid back $39,000 in principal? Compare that to $54,000 if you went with 25 years. Now, why is that? Remember I said earlier that mortgages are front-loaded? Now, for a 30-year amortization, your front-loaded interest payment is going to be longer than 25-year amortization, cause it's a longer mortgage. And this causes a heck of a lot of problems for a middle class trying to sell their property. Since you don't have as much principal in your property, middle class might not be able to afford selling their properties because all the fees that's attached to selling. You know, real estate agent fees, lawyer fees, tax. I mean, whatever. Nobody cares, right? The middle class. That's what the government wants. The reality is, if your interest rate is 5% for your mortgage, you're only paying like 8% less bi-weekly if you're doing a 30-year amortization compared to 25-year amortization. Technically, this allows you to buy a better home. Now, there are a couple things that the government can do to increase affordability in housing. First of all, build more homes. Like, why are developers slowing the building process when immigrants are flooding the country? You want more immigrants? Sure, build more housing. So what the government should do is to create incentives to help developers build more housing, like tax cuts, giving developers a grant or a bonus if they meet a certain quota. Now, to be fair, the government is incentivizing developers to build more housing, but the government isn't giving developers a grant or a bonus, cause no, the government would never do that. We as middle class citizens are paying these developers. Why? This new program will technically increase the middle class's buying power, which means the developers can charge more money per unit to make more money and increase profitability. So remember I said that you save 8% in bi-weekly payments for a 30-year amortization compared to 25-year amortization? Now think about it. Are you really saving money if the developers are increasing their pricing per unit by 8%? Essentially, with this new policy, it's actually going to make home prices in Canada even more unaffordable. Cause let's be honest, if you're a developer, you realize that you can increase your units by 8% and people will still buy it? Would you do it? Of course, I mean, I would. Money is the root of all evil. It's all about the profits. Here's the thing, I do like the plan to increase RRSP withdrawal for first-time home buyers from $35,000 to $60,000. But then again, that's just gonna drive the home prices in Canada even further up. Here's my rule of thumb. If you can't afford a house with a 25-year amortization, you're not gonna be able to afford that house even with a 30-year amortization. It's just not gonna happen. Assuming you buy your first house when you're 35, which isn't even all that uncommon during this day and age. Are you really going to be paying your mortgage all the way up to when you retire? And then what? Leave you nothing for retirement? Here's the thing, I'm not saying don't go for the 30-year amortization plan, but like, tread carefully. Know exactly what you're getting yourself into before you commit. Cause you don't want to regret the decision you made in 2024 and 2050. Again, if you can't afford a 25-year amortization mortgage, don't try to stretch it out and say, oh, maybe I can afford a 30-year amortization period. Cause the chances are you can't. I know, owning a home is hot, it's sexy, everybody wants to own a home. But you know what's even sexier? Not being financially Alright, that's it for today. Let me know your thoughts on the new first home buyers incentives from the government. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's gonna make affordability even worse in Canada? Also, feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. If it's your first time here, I make financial tips for Canadians in my long form content and financial comedy in my shorts. Thank you all, and I'll see you next time.